I'm going to try and do a video here explaining the procedures for doing an oil change on a 1330. The first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove some panels. So we're going to be removing the top panel here, the mirror, obviously this access panel, and the lower panel. So I'll get those off and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the panels off. Notice I had to get a couple more off. There's a little acoustic panel up in here that you got to take off. It's just 2 screws, not a big deal. Also took the mud flap off on the bottom, splash guard, whatever you want to call it. So we're getting ready to get into this thing. I just got all my parts over here. Take a good look. You'll notice that I got some baggies against the parts. Just a little tip that I've given myself is that as you take a panel off, put those screws in a baggie, and when you're going to put it back on, when you run out of screws, you're done. Okay, I'll get back to you as soon as we start draining some oil here. Okay, I'm going to give you an idea of where the drain plugs are now. For the gearbox, if you notice where the dipstick is, just go straight down. See if I can get the camera under here. And it is right there. Okay, so that you're going to need a T40 for that. So that's on the right hand side. Then if you go to the left hand side of your Spyder, get down in here for the engine drain plug. You can actually kind of see it right in there, but if you go up, there's a hole here, and straight up in there is your oil drain plug. You need a T45 for that. Okay, let's see if we can get a little juice out of this baby. Okay, so I got most of the oil draining, just got a few drips here and there. Now that I've got that done, the next is going to be taking the oil filter out. That's right in here. That's the cap for it. You're going to need a 36mm wrench or socket to get that out of there. I picked myself up a socket just to make it a little easier to get at. So we'll get that baby out of there. Okay, I got this all loosened off here. Just to give you an idea what you're looking at. I put a little rag down just to catch any oil that might drip down. You'll see that the cap comes off. You got a few, a long extension in there and a couple of O-rings and stuff like that you're going to need to change. Let's put that over here with the rest of this stuff. And then all you got is your loose oil filter. The reason I left that to the last, obviously, is you let all the oil drain out, you're going to make a little bit less of a mess when you're pulling it out. Okay, be back in a minute. Okay, so now, the next step is to prepare everything that you've pulled out. You're going to want to replace this O-ring, these two. I've got the new one sitting here. Obviously, the new filter. Got a crush washer on the bottom of this, a couple of O-rings. Again, I've got all this stuff from my kit. The one surprising thing that I noticed is you pull out. This is the plug from the gearbox. Notice that it's minus this nice little copper ring that's supposed to be on it, that the dealer didn't bother to put on when they did my first service. So I guess it's a good thing that I'm doing my own to make sure everything's right. Not too impressed considering, it cost over $500 for that first service. You'd think they'd throw in the extra ring, but I guess they were all out of them that day. You notice that I've got, I picked up the blended kit. A little background on what I've done so far is when I took it in for my first service, I switched over to the full synthetic. I'm a big proponent of 100% synthetic. The one thing I did notice though when I was riding it after that, that it just seemed like it was a little louder when it was changing gears. So, you know, the switching seemed to just clunk just a little more than what I thought it did before. Talked to the service techs over at my dealer about why they're, you know, recommending the blended over the full synthetic, and basically they're just saying the only reason they're saying to use the blended was that it was just a little thicker, you know, just worked with the wet clutch a little better. And so I'm going to go back to this. I basically change my oil about every 6,000 kilometers, 4,000 miles anyway, so you know, I'm not too worried about this stuff breaking down in that time. I'll just see if it, you know, where was I? A little compressor interruption there. So we're just going to see if it, you know, seems to change gears a little better, or if I don't notice any difference, I might be switching back to the full synthetic. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I'll talk to you once I get all these parts back in. Okay, so I've got the drain plugs back in. The engine drain plug, you need to torque that about 21 foot-pounds. It's plus or minus 1. The clutch cover, the gearbox drain plug, it's torqued out to 15 pounds, plus or minus 1. And then the oil filter cover is going to be torqued out at 18 foot-pounds, plus or minus 2. Okay, so I'm going to start throwing in some new juice into this girl. You'll notice that in your kit you're going to get 6 liters of oil. The machine does not take 6 liters, so don't be pouring all the oil in. Roughly it's about 5.3 liters. So we're going to start close to that and see where it's at, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I've put about 5 1/4 liters of oil in. I'm going to start it up now and get up to, you know, operating temperature, and then I'm going to, you know, check to see if it needs a little more or not. The one thing I would like to mention is that while dumping out my old oil, I found that infamous missing copper washer, so I'd like to apologize to the service tech for calling them out when it was in fact there. So just wanted to set the record straight on that. I did have the copper washer, crush washer, that was supposed to be on the gearbox plug. Okay, I'll get back to you as soon as I'm finished getting this thing up to temp, and then I'll just slap on some panels while it's running too. Okay, she's all back together. Let her warm up to running temperature. Got a good level going. She's all ready to hit the road and ready for spring to get ripping down the road. Hope you enjoyed my first attempt at a video. Later.